these things. Sorry. Anyway, they're not my ears. It's time for the Week in Rock, and it's rather a special Week in Rock because it's all the many weeks in rock past preposition trouble again. It's the best of Week in Rock with Kurt Loder and Carolyn Heldman.
Hello, this is Huey Lewis from sunny California. And you're watching MTV. And what can I say? Rock on!
This week, an on-the-scene report from the big synth rock summit in California, a secret message from Prince, and a mid-year look back at the best of the Week in Rock. Hi, I'm Kurt Loder.
I'm Carolyn Heldman. Welcome to the Week in Rock.
Well, the hottest rock story of the week, and maybe of the year, concerned Bruce Springsteen and his famously derailed 3-year marriage to actress Julianne Phillips. Rumors about the couple's troubled union began building a few weeks back when Springsteen was spotted in a New York nightclub without his wedding ring. Then, late last week, came official word from the Phillips camp that Bruce and Julianne had indeed separated. At this point, a great tabloid guessing game began. Had the couple parted because Springsteen wanted children while Phillips wanted to nurture her now flourishing film career? Or was the split instead caused by Bruce's infatuation with E Street Band singer Patti Scialfa, with whom he was by then touring Europe? This latter possibility was supported by paparazzi photos of Bruce and Patti cuddling by a hotel pool in Rome and subsequently snuggling through the streets of Paris. And on Monday, the National Enquirer will publish shots of Springsteen in his underwear and Scialfa in a slip sharing an intimate moment on a hotel room balcony. What does all this mean? Well, one observer on the Julianne Phillips side of the situation says that Springsteen, by being so public in his relationship with Scialfa, is just plain behaving badly. Phillips spokeswoman Molly Madden, however, insists that the couple's separation has nothing to do with her career or his desire for children, and she adds that they have not filed for divorce. What do Springsteen's fans make of the mess? We asked a few of them, and here's what they had to say.
They're chewing him up a lot. They don't deserve it.
Please, more coverage on Bruce Springsteen.
I believe that it's his own business, really.
I don't really listen to the press. I don't even know why I'm talking to the press, come to think of it.
It's their life. Whatever they want to do with it, it's fine with me.
I think it's terrible.
He's the boss, as they say. And if he's happy with his new life, he's better off.
If you're a fan of synthesized music, you really should have been at the Rose Bowl in Southern California last Saturday. Depeche Mode wanted to end their 9-month world tour in a special way, and what they came up was the biggest synth rock concert ever, a celebration of some of the best in techno-pop music.
Modern music takes over.
Yes!
Modern music did take over for almost 9 hours at the Rose Bowl, turning this concert for the masses into synthesized music's answer to the Monsters of Rock show. 70,000 fans turned out to see Wire, Thomas Dolby, OMD, and headliners Depeche Mode. It was the largest U.S. concert ever for all of the artists involved, and that made for some pre-concert jitters.
No, it's just another gig, really. You know, 70,000 people, who cares? And we started to have sex after. Have sex? Whoa! Freudian slip!
It's going to be a concentrated information projection, I think.
Just shows you how nervous I am. Oh, get me on that stage. Let me get it over and done with.
OMD got the crowd going with a set from their recently released Greatest Hits LP. And as the day went on, there were celebrity arrivals and premature departures by fans who let the excitement get to them. Finally, when the sun went down, the Boys in Black came on. And in this stadium setting, Depeche Mode were obviously the home team.
It's like they make you melt, you know?
I've been their fan since I was 16 years old.
It's just a one heck of a good show, I think. Don't you all think so?
Yeah.
It's the 101st on this tour, and we felt that we had to do something special after 8 or 9 months on the road.
So with this 9-hour marathon under their belts, are these synth rockers ready to join the Monsters of Rock?
We didn't have enough spandex trousers to go round, actually, and Whitesnake seemed to have bought most of the wigs in America, so we just couldn't do it.
And I think we sensed that Van Halen was a bit scared that we blow him off stage, so, I mean, you know.
Look for Depeche Mode to release a live album of their concert for the masses by year's end, plus a theatrical film of their world tour.
Scoring 3 #1 hits off of one album is pretty impressive, right? 4 is definitely rare, and 5, until this week at least, was unheard of, but not anymore. In the new Billboard magazine, Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana takes over as the #1 single in the nation, making Jackson the first artist ever to spin out 5 chart toppers from the same LP. Jackson has also been setting off some political sparks recently. Last Sunday, when his European tour reached West Berlin, the singer played an outdoor concert near the Berlin Wall. And just as with last year's shows at the same venue by David Bowie and Eurythmics, the presence of a Western superstar caused several thousand fans to gather on the eastern side of the wall to hear the music. Such spontaneous gatherings are illegal in East Berlin, and local police quickly dispersed the crowd using clubs and cattle prods.
That same evening, across town at East Berlin's Onderrad racetrack, there was an authorized concert taking place, and its star was another Westerner, Bryan Adams. Adams headlined the final night of an unprecedented 3-day rock and pop festival that had already showcased such non-communist acts as James Brown, Big Country, and Marillion. Here's how it all looked.
Among the many things rarely seen on the East German side of the Berlin Wall are Western rock and roll acts. But last Sunday, Bryan Adams and his band were not only in East Berlin, they were headlining a rock show.
Bis bald in Berlin und heute live aus Kanada, Bryan Adams.
It was a reunion of sorts for Adams and the festival's host, East German skater and Olympic gold medalist Katharina Witt, who'd first met at last year's Winter Olympics in Adams' home country of Canada. But Adams had more on his mind than just renewing a friendship. The festival was a kickoff for a 3-day international conference on the establishment of nuclear-free zones in Europe, a goal with which Adams is in complete sympathy.
I live in a nuclear-free zone in Vancouver, Canada, and so I support the idea of having nuclear-free zones, which is basically what this whole conference is about. And for a performer like me from the West to come in here is basically showing support. Kick down the barricade! Listen what the kids say!
Some 65,000 fans turned out for the government-sponsored concert, and while they may or may not have been political, they were definitely into Adams' brand of rock and roll music, which, in the end, may turn out to be the West's most powerful political weapon of all.
It's like putting your foot in the door. I hope eventually we kick the door down.
2 rival auction houses in New York both made news this week, both of them with showbiz collectibles on the block. At Christie's East, a record-setting $165,000 was paid by an anonymous buyer for a pair of ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz. In addition, a collection of 96 slides of Marilyn Monroe, taken at the age of 19, were sold in 16 sets and brought in a total of almost $54,000. A few days earlier, at nearby Sotheby's, the bidding was in much more of a rock and roll vein.
This 1946 Wurlitzer jukebox was just one of the 300 items that went on the auction block at Sotheby's Saturday afternoon. Among the other items for sale, there were some goofy things like Ringo Starr's automobile insurance policy, Huey Lewis's golf clubs, and Elvis Presley's underwear, to valuable collectibles like guitars from Elvis Costello, The Edge, and Jimi Hendrix.
The Hendrix guitar is an interesting piece because I think it's safe to say that it was the property of Jimi Hendrix. But it's a very, very well-known fact that Jimi Hendrix liked to play right-handed Stratocasters upside down because it was just set up for him better that way. And this guitar is a lefty guitar.
If Jimmy didn't play that particular Stratocaster much, it didn't seem to bother the absent bidder, who paid $14,000 for it. Still, the market for pop collectibles is so crazy right now that a lot of the items brought up to 4 times their projected price. Run DMC's Adidas sold for $1,700. 2 Bruce Springsteen roadie jackets went for $850. Hendrix's Nehru jacket cashed in at $12,000. If it seems a bit absurd that people would pay so much for so little, one buyer says it's a sign of the times.
I think America is addicted to stardom.
Over 300 people were present, but most of the bidding and buying was done by the Hard Rock Cafe and Jimmy Velvet, who runs the Elvis Presley Museums and is opening a chain of restaurants. He spent over $100,000 altogether, and $9,000 of it on a Madonna bustier. And the reason?
What was Madonna's? No, I think it'll be a great asset to our restaurant, you know, on display, and it was well worth it, I think.
The Sotheby's auction raised $127,000 for the T.J. Martell Foundation for Cancer and AIDS Research.
Coming up, we'll bring you a mid-year roundup of the best of the week in rock, plus an in-studio visit from our favorite 1988 presidential candidate, Brandy of the Redwoods.
The great thing was, I got to shake. So you see, either way is fine with me.
Subway vigilante with a gun, and he shot the guys who were robbing him with a screwdriver, which I understand now. If you're going to rob someone, use a tool, because, you know, they're not going to book you on carrying a tool. But it's like, you know, Getz is going, it wasn't like a freak accident. Getz has been probably carrying heat for the whole time, going, one of these days, man, one of these days, it's going to be so good, I can taste it. You know, and then these guys go, give me all your money, and he goes, boom! You know, he's like, give me all your money, or I'm going to make your glasses really wobbly. Bernardo. You know.
Welcome back to the Week in Rock.
Ever since it was almost released last year, Prince's X-rated Black album has been the hottest collectible on the bootleg record circuit. But bootlegs are illegal, and this particular bootleg's popularity is apparently rubbing Prince himself very much the wrong way. How do we know? Well, there's a hidden message to that effect buried in his current video for Alphabet Street. It's really hard to spot, but if you slow down the clip about 25 seconds into it, you can make out in tiny little letters the words, "Don't buy the Black album, I'm sorry." Sorry you're buying it, sorry he made it, who knows. In any case, Prince has just completed a second video from his Love Sexy album for the song Glam Slam, and he kicks off a European tour in Paris on July 8th.
Summer officially began this week, and a lot of our MTV News staffers immediately hit the beach. We can't blame them, really. There's a big summer coming up, and they're going to be busy. However, they've left us with some time to fill, and what better way to do that, we figured, than to take a look back at some of our favorite Week in Rock features from the first half of 1988. We'll start out with four guys who've given hard rock a much-needed shot in the arm this year, Guns N' Roses. They've been suffering some medical setbacks recently, with lead singer Axl Rose sidelined by a case of acute laryngitis. The group is hoping he won't have to undergo laser surgery to remove polyps in his throat, and that he'll be better in time to start a tour with Aerosmith on July 17th. But there were no clouds on Guns N' Roses' hard rock horizon when we first featured them on the Week in Rock back in April.
You know where you are?
Well, we don't consider ourselves a heavy metal band.
You in the jungle, baby!
We consider ourselves a rock and roll band. With this particular album, Appetite for Destruction, we wanted to put the rock and roll out first, the hard stuff out first, but, you know, there'll be a lot of variation on the next record. A lot of bands are scared to venture into any territory except hard rock, and it's a lot of guys who feel like, well, if I do that, I'm wimpy. Name anybody that you've ever listened to, if we've heard of them, they're an influence. A lot of the 70s hard rock bands, like Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Alice Cooper, AC/DC. I listen to everything from old Bessie Smith, Frank Sinatra, to Metallica's latest. When the parents hate it, the kids love it, so it's like, you know, and then the parents end up finding a song they like, so I like that. We just give everything that we have during the show to the point of, like, it takes a lot of time to recover afterwards.
And now for a little politics, our kind of politics anyway. Randy of the Redwoods was a very dark horse when we got behind his presidential campaign last February. Now, of course, he's a household name. And his campaign slogan, "Just Say Whoa," is on hip lips from coast to coast. Here's a look back at how Randy Mania got started.
Yeah, I was there, and so was the snow. Nicknamed the Granite State, New Hampshire is famous for its maple syrup, its beautiful scenery, and the very first presidential primary in election '88. No president has ever been elected without first winning the New Hampshire primary. You can't run for president when it's freezing and blizzarding. They're nuts. Whew. There's nobody even on the street except me. How's it going, Randy? Fine. Are you gonna vote? Sure. I drank from the vat of maple syrup all the candidates have to. even though I wasn't supposed to. I met most of the candidates, but my favorite was Al Haig.
I'm worried about you. What? Are you warm enough?
Astrology buff Bob Dole told us what his sign was.
I'm a cusp.
Sir, are you a registered Republican?
No.
Are you going to vote for Pat Robertson?
Are you kidding? In the moral majority? What, are you nuts?
There you have it. 100% of the people up here in New Hampshire are not Republicans, and 100% of those people that aren't Republicans are not voting for Pat Robertson. George Bush and Mike Dukakis were the big winners, but for my money, it's a shame any of them had to lose. But the only real losers in the election are the people who forget to register to vote. And remember, if you don't register, you know, that thing from Alien might leap out of your stomach. I mean, it could. And then you'd have, like, 2 votes, you know. All in all, I loved New Hampshire, and I think New Hampshire loved me.
We love Randy! We love Randy! We love Randy!
Well, Randy's come a long way since New Hampshire, of course. In fact, he's come right into the studio to be with us today. Randy, welcome.
Oh, thanks.
Listen, I wonder if you could catch us up on what's been going on for the last 5 months. How has the campaign been going? What have been the highlights?
Oh, the highlights. We've had lots of highlights. You know, we went down to Daytona Beach, which is, of course, where I met my running mate and the, you know. Which is? The Joan of Arc.
Wow.
We got married in a private ceremony, too. And the guy said, you know, it was legal and everything. And so the Joan and I are running, went to Daytona, and since then, just hanging out, you know, doing some campaigning, but I don't like to stress that too much, if you know what I mean.
Have you got a platform together yet?
Not really. You know, I think it's important to put that together after you're elected, because if you lose a bunch of votes based on the fact that people didn't like your platform, what's the sense? You know what I mean? So I've mostly just been, you know, I went down to Washington for a while. I've been going to the White House to visit Ronald Reagan.
Really?
Yeah, helping redesign.
Was anybody there when you went there? Is anybody home in that place? Or?
Yeah, usually he sends everybody out, and then he and Nancy welcome me with open arms. In fact, Ron and Nancy and I and the Joan, she loves Joan. You know, she doesn't bicker with Joan like that other raisin Gorbachev. They get along great. You can be late. But we went down to Heritage USA.
Wow.
And we picked this up. It says, I heart PTL, Heritage USA.
Was it everything you hoped it would be?
Well, check it out. There's the little teddy bear.
Obviously it is.
You know. So we were pretty happy about that.
What does the future hold?
Good stuff. You know, we got a campaign video coming out called Just Say Whoa. Watch for that.
All right.
That'll be July 4th, I think.
We will be, and remember, we're behind you.
I hope. Somebody should.
Thanks a lot, Randy. Back to you, Carolyn.
Thanks, Kurt. Coming up next, a look at 2 of the hottest movies of 1988. One about color-coded street gangs, the other about a cartoon rabbit when the Week in Rock continues.
Come on, Daddy.
But tell me, Eddie, is that a rabbit in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
President Milton Rackmill presents to Brenda Lee a gold record symbolizing the sale of 1 million copies of her song, I'm Sorry. It's the nation's #1 hit, so what's for a little girl from Tennessee to be sorry about?
It's the original Debbie Gibson.
Yeah, I thought there was only one.
Welcome back to the Week in Rock.
1988 has been a pretty good year for movies so far, bringing us such worthy efforts as Hairspray, Big, Willow, and, depending on your capacity for ongoing icons, Rambo 3, Crocodile Dundee 2, and the recently released Schwarzenegger epic Red Heat. But the hottest film out of Hollywood this week featured a rabbit named Roger, a whole herd of cartoon stars from the heyday of movie animation, and, oh yes, some humans too.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a spectacular collaboration between Steven Spielberg's production company and the legendary Disney Studios, seems certain to become this summer's most magical attraction for kids of all ages.
Is that it, or are you scared?
Please, me scared? Don't be ridiculous.
Directed by Robert Zemeckis of Back to the Future and animated by Oscar winner Richard Williams, the film is a sort of cartoon noir set in the fictitious Toontown district of Los Angeles circa 1947.
What I hoped to do was I wanted to give a new
great, humorous, funny cartoon character to the world, and I wanted to celebrate the great cartoon humor of the 40s and 50s that we don't get a chance to see very often anymore.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit premiered at New York's Radio City Music Hall on Tuesday, and so far critics have loved it. Of course, the producers are hoping that audiences will too. The movie cost more than $40 million to make. In its astonishing blend of human and cartoon characters, it was an overwhelmingly difficult project to bring off.
After you'd drawn the rabbit, you had to draw the shadows to give the illusion of the depth. Then you had to put the rim lighting around it and floor shadows. Then we always had several characters going at once. So it was an enormous, I don't know whether it was 1 million drawings or 2 million, but it was a hell of a lot of drawings.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit has all the earmarks, if you'll pardon the pun, of a hot movie. Produced by baby boomers in the year of Mickey Mouse's 60th birthday, its timing is perfect. Another of this year's films which perfectly captured its moment, but in a very different way, was Colors. This raw and uncompromising movie marked the directorial comeback of Dennis Hopper, himself a baby boom icon, and its subject was ripped right out of today's headlines. Colors is an unblinking look at the LA street gang scene with a soundtrack that doubles nicely as an all-star introduction to hardcore rap music. If you haven't seen this movie yet, you definitely should. Here's why.
Colors, 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 colors.
South Central Los Angeles. Hollywood's not far from here, neither is Beverly Hills, but they might as well be on another planet. This is the home of the Crips and the Bloods, where your life can depend on the color of the clothes you wear. This is the war zone, the setting for Colors.
These are kids shooting each other. These are kids shooting kids, gangs killing gangs, not going out and arbitrarily shooting other people. I mean, sometimes they get in the way and there's a lot of innocent victims, but they're killing each other over territory and drugs and colors.
It's estimated that there are 75,000 members of youth gangs in greater Los Angeles. They live in a state of perpetual internecine war. Dennis Hopper wanted to make a movie about the way they live and die, and he wanted that movie to be real. So he recruited actual gangbangers, as they're called, for the cast, and he assigned the writing of the title song to LA's premier rap artist, Ice-T, himself a product of these brutal streets.
My pants are sagging, braided hair, suckers stare, but I don't care. 400 gang killings last year. This year, kids are born. Where's my uncle? The Bloods got him, the Crips got him. They grow up hating from day one.
Colors brings the gang war streets straight to the screen. It is so on the mark, so real, that it's already frightened a lot of theater owners, upset local police, and infuriated such anti-gang groups as the Guardian Angels.
The heroes being two white cops, but the message being that being a gangbanger is number one, second to none. And with the kinds of gang and crack problems we have in America today, we don't need a propaganda movie making these guys any bigger than they already are.
Dennis Hopper sees the issue differently.
If you make a movie about a real problem and somebody says we've got to suppress this because there's a real problem, then, I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
What about the police, who have to deal with drive-by shootings and other gang violence on a daily basis?
It's a movie, I'm told, that was done very well. It's a good quality picture. It's very realistic. And if I was involved in that kind of activity, I'd want to go and see it. You know, I just really fear that it's going to be counterproductive to what we're trying to do.
In Colors, the cops are played by Sean Penn and Robert Duvall. And just as in real life, they seem overwhelmed by the size of the gang problem and its apparent insolubility.
So we're talking about, in many cases, better weapons than the police department's got. Certainly better than my officers are carrying on a day-to-day basis.
LA's ongoing youth gang slaughter has become the #1 press story of the year in California, and it's receiving an increasing amount of national attention. But down in the streets of South Central, nothing much seems to have changed.
I look at it as a war, deeply rooted, people, thousands dying on each side. So I mean, the media has an attitude that they should be able to snap their fingers and stop it, which you can't do.
Colors never created the carnage that was predicted back when we first covered the film, but the gang violence it depicts continues unabated on the streets of Los Angeles.
And if it's wild, weird, or just depressingly trendy, we here at The Week in Rock will generally send our man, Kevin Seal, out to cover it. Kevin has, shall we say, a unique sensibility, and it was vividly displayed when we dispatched him a few months back to a virtual den of trendiness, a New York restaurant called Trixie's.
New York, New York, the naked city. A city of 8 million stories, the city of 3,000 bars, restaurants, and cafes. And why is night after night one new restaurant packed to the rafters? Why has suddenly Trixie's become the place to go?
It could be because you get a lot more than country catfish, French fried sweet potatoes, and other down-home dishes when you go to Trixie's. You get a talent show that resembles a new kind of vaudeville. You also get to hang out with the whacked-out owner, Trixie, a former stockbroker. She left Wall Street to dance through the aisles every night.
But I was always on a mission. I was always looking. I decided that 42nd to 52nd was my neighborhood. That was my plot. So I just rode my bike all around Manhattan from like Broadway to 10th Avenue. I knew I'd find a joint, and I found it.
One of Manhattan's new breed of loud, kitschy restaurants. Trixie's has only been open for 5 months now, but it's already attracted its own pack of regulars.
Why do you come to Trixie's?
I come to Trixie's for the love spray. It's the key to sex and love in the 80s.
Extraordinary.
A little free.
Ah! It burns!
How do you feel?
Ah! Hi. Do you come to Trixie's for the cheap beer or the atmosphere?
I come for the women. The women are awesome here.
It's a beautiful place. It's a loving and such gorgeous, handsome men. My, oh, my, oh, my. And they're all mine. All mine.
Head Chef Lynette, why is this the funnest restaurant to work in?
I get to put mayonnaise on people like you!
And so from Trixie's, the wackiest restaurant in New York's Hell's Kitchen, we bid you a filthy, horrid, awful good night.
Such dignity, he's amazing.
Sophisticated nightlife. Well, that about does it for this special Best of edition of the Week in Rock. We'll be back next week with a well-tanned staff and an all-new show, including a rare one-on-one with guitarist Jimmy Page, an Iggy Pop profile, and a birthday salute to that classic American chopper, the Harley Davidson.
And we leave you now with some more from Depeche Mode live at the Rose Bowl. See you next week.